Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and as promised, we have a second edition of Breaking News this Saturday, the 26th day of October, 2024. We've learned some very interesting things since we last joined you early this morning here Pacific time. Let's get right to the stories. There are three of them. The first one, damage to Iran's missile factory will take 2 years to repair. That's the main headline that's coming out of this. Now, we're also told here, and this is interesting, this is kind of what we assume was happening. Israel had structured the Iranian strike so that Tehran could deny the damage that was done. And then an IDF spokesman said, if Iran begins a new round of escalations, we will respond. All right, so here's where we're at right now. Headline one, damage to Iran's missile factory will take 2 years to repair. This is from Israel National News. The IAF, that's the Israeli Air Force, hits a Russian-provided S-300 battery that is placed to protect Tehran. It's a key factory for the production of ballistic missiles that were used in the October 1st attack. Now, two Iranian officials supposedly told the New York Times that among Iran's S-300 air defense system, located at the Khomeini International Airport to protect Tehran, well, it was among approximately 20 sites that were struck in Israel's retaliatory attack on Friday night, early Saturday morning. One of the officials is a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, and according to the source, at least three Revolutionary Guard Corps bases were struck in Tehran, and the secret military base in Parchin was struck by one drone. However, two others were shot down. An Israeli official confirmed to the Wall Street Journal that the S-300s were targeted. The message says that we don't want an escalation, but if Iran decides to escalate and attack Israel again, the removal of the S-300s increases Israel's range of freedom and movement in the Iranian skies, which means we could do a lot more damage if this system is not in operation as it should be. Now, there's a Saudi Arabian news site called ELAPH, ELAPH. It reported, this is interesting, that Israel struck a missile factory containing heavy fuel mixers used to power the Kayabar and Qassam ballistic missiles used in the October 1st strike. The site, which was this was supposedly an informed sources who cited this, added that the factory was completely destroyed and will take 2 years to repair. The factory was considered the spine of Iran's missile development, and Israel has now put it completely out of use, the source added. Reports said that four buildings at Parchin were affected. Now, according to, again, the news from Israel, the Israeli strike was unanimously approved Friday night in an hour-long phone vote held by the Diplomatic Security Cabinet. CAN 11, that's one of their TV networks there in Israel, reported that at least three cabinet members were apprehensive about the intensity of the strike, but none voted against it. The Iranian Foreign Ministry, of course, harshly condemns the strikes, calling it a severe provocation, which threatens regional stability. A senior source promised that Iran will not ignore the strike and Israel will receive a quote unquote appropriate response. Here comes the however. However, Iran has largely downplayed the severity of the strike, saying the damage was minimal and that the attack was a weak attempt at retaliation for the October 1st ballistic missile barrage. The New York Times quoted analysts as noting that such statements could be attempts to allow the Iranian government a quote unquote exit ramp if it decides not to respond and further escalate the situation. In other words, they'll say nothing happened, this response by Israel, so it's not worth attacking them. The site noted that prior to the Israeli attack, Iranian officials clarified that Iran's response would depend on the severity and scope of Israel's strikes. And we've been talking about that. Omid Mamarian, he's an Iran expert at Dawn, DAWN, a Washington-based think tank that focuses on American foreign policy in the Middle East, told the Times, the downplaying of the attacks by Israel, regardless of its scale or targets, indicates a deliberate effort to avoid escalating tensions and going to war. The Iranian regime knows that it's at a significant disadvantage militarily. So it was purposely done, the strike, as we imagine, as we reported, to hit just military sites and not do any damage really to their nuclear site or to their oil fields. Anything could really, really hurt the country. And that's kind of it. And as we're going to see, that's all she wrote. They're going to say, unless Iran responds, we're going to call it a day and move on. Now, it's interesting reading the comments. There was a couple of the political parties in Israel that are opposition. They're not part of the government of Netanyahu. They're the opposition parties. They were not very happy with the response. They said it was very weak compared to what it could be, and it should have been much stronger. Now, the comments have reflected this too. We were expecting this. Let me read you a couple of them. Here's one. At some point, we can't make excuses anymore. The prime minister reported was thwarting from striking Iran in 2013 by some treasonous acts, that of then Mossad director Dagan. Okay, but now he has an opportunity. What does he do? It is put up or shut up time. As an Israeli, I'm actually angered that he spent so many years spreading fear in Israel of that nuclear program with good justification, but has not managed to act. If he does not, he will not be remembered fondly. Another person said, the strike is even more pathetic than the last response, just invites bigger strike from Iran in the near future. The comments were not very positive of what Israel did. And so we were expecting something like this, and it's rather strange to see what they did, but not totally unexpected. We're going to talk about why in a second here as we go into the second headline. Israel structured the Iran strike so that Tehran could deny damage was done. In other words, they purposely did this so there's not going to be a regional war. They're going to end it, and we're going to be back to the status quo. Israel structured its strikes on Iran to limit casualties and keep the overall impact contained, a move designed to allow Iran to minimize acknowledgement of the damage and the aftermath. The Washington Post reported on Saturday, citing an individual with direct knowledge of Israel's plans. According to this source, the action was an escalated version of Israel's response in April when it conducted a strike in central Iran after Iran had launched those missiles and drones at Israel. Iranian officials at the time reported no resulting damage. We have sort of the same thing now here. They're playing, as we mentioned earlier, they're saying, look, life went on as normal and the people didn't hit the air raid shelters. You really didn't do any damage. We'll think about doing a response if need be, but it was really kind of a weak attempt. Now, this was done purposely by Israel, and sadly, the reason is the United States has made it very clear we don't support any type of major response to Iran. Hit their military sites, but don't hit their nuclear program, don't hit their oil fields. Remember, we had the story that Biden administration tried to tell the world to convince Israel that Iran is not attempting to build nuclear weapons, they're attempting to go forward with the nuclear program, which everyone else in the world knows that they are. And so it's kind of sad. Now, also, too, part of the mix here, and they don't say it, is the election's coming up in 10 days, and they're scared to death Kamala Harris is going to win and be the next president. They'll have to deal with her, so they want to act like they're and somehow trying to appease what this administration is doing with respect to limiting their response when they could have done a lot more. That seems to be the case. Now, then again, you have for local consumption, this headline, number 3 from the IDF spokesman, if Iran begins a new round of escalations, we will respond. But it looks like they purposely didn't do enough to make Iran need to respond. Agari confirms the successful Israeli strikes on Iran, warns the Iranian regime against continuing escalations. We will be obligated to respond. And here's the bottom line. The Israeli Defense Force has fulfilled its mission. Our message is clear. All those who threaten the state of Israel and seek to drag the region into a wider escalation will pay a heavy price. We demonstrated today that we have both the capability and the resolve to act decisively, and we are prepared on offense and defense to defend the state of Israel and the people of Israel. And he also warned if the regime in Iran were to make the mistake of beginning a new round of escalation, we're going to be obligated to respond. But it seems they purposely didn't do enough to make Iran respond. In other words, they wanted to look like they've done plenty and the mission accomplished, but not so much where Iran would feel the need, for its own, political consumption. They're telling their own people, we don't need to respond. The world says you don't need to respond. Everybody else, please don't respond because of the upset it would be to the entire world if they got into a regional war. So we know it would be terrible. But here again, like these comments said, for years and years, Netanyahu has been telling the Israeli people that, there's this terrible nuclear, and it is true, a terrible nuclear program that they're working on that someday the delivery system as well as the nuclear warheads can be manufactured. The delivery system can be done to the point where they can send some type of a nuclear bomb attached to some missile that would reach Israel, could destroy the country or a large part of it. And it is a reality which Iran wants to do. And so it's really interesting what happened. It's not surprising given the political climate right now. Again, 2 weeks before the election. They don't want to be seen as starting some regional war, particularly if Harris wins the presidency, because then she, treats them bad enough as it is, and they're worried about the future. And well, in one sense, we understand this, but there are a lot of people that read some stories already that are not really that impressed with what Israel did, as much as they try and say we've accomplished our mission. So tomorrow is the full day. Again, tonight was just, again, when the Sabbath's over about 8 o'clock, you got stories that come out, but only last a few hours, and those are the headlines. Tomorrow's a full day. So by the time we start tomorrow morning, we'll have all the morning papers, the morning Israeli websites, kind of giving more and more information, interviews with people that empower their response to it. And we'll kind of get a better picture of it. But as for now, it's done. There's no more fighting going on. They finished their mission and 3 waves of attacks lasted about 3 hours. We're told 3 to 4 hours, and that's it for now. And so will either side do anything else? If Iran does not respond, Israel, it seems, will not do anything. And so they'll just go on their merry way. So again, this is where we're at right now. We'll keep an eye on everything. If something big happens, we, of course, will let you know. But it's never a dull moment there is there. Now, the problem is, of course, the United States is a real issue with Israel. And depending, like we said, on who wins the election, it'll be a much bigger problem or a lot smaller problem in the near future. So we will see. Anyway, that's where we're at right now. We're giving you the latest headlines here on Breaking News. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with you, Lord willing, tomorrow morning with much more. Until then, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.